Hello, everyone. Today I'm here with INTJ Lindsay, who you might know as LiJo on YouTube, and we're going to be dissecting her INTJ brain today.
Thanks, Megan. It's great to be over here with you.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So pretty much in this episode, I'm going to be asking Lindsay some questions, and we're going to be discussing the cognitive functions in the INTJ, which the dominant function is the introverted intuition, the secondary being the extroverted thinking. But Lindsay, for people who are not familiar with you, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit and tell us about your channel?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Lindsay. I also go by LiJo on my channel. And I've really found that typology is a good strategy for people learning more, not only about themselves, but about others. And I really like the component of it that is related to growth. And so originally coming into the Myers-Briggs community only a few years ago, I said that there was a big gap between people who were there kind of as a social club and those who were there to really grow and learn. And
Absolutely.
my dog just stepped on my headset. But so I really liked the growing and learning side. And so I wanted to basically just bring in that realm of understanding to help people understand better, communicate better. And I feel as though if you're able to learn the different functions and how they react in different ways, that you can really tune into the language someone is speaking in, and you can really establish this greater level of communication so that people aren't missing each other as much when they're talking, and they're having an easier time just knowing what the other person needs and wants and how to get from A to B faster.
So I just want to say that the first video I found of you, I remember you were talking about something like how to be human or something like
sounds right.
How to feel like a human as an INTJ. And I thought like something that I first noticed about, I guess, your approach to typology that I really appreciate is I think you were talking something about like someone was crying in the office and you didn't know how to react. And I just found that very refreshing to see, like, inside the head of an INTJ, where if you read about the INTJ descriptions and how they act and stuff, you might read some stereotypes where it's like, oh, they're cold, oh, they don't care about you and stuff. And like what I thought you really showed in that video and in lots of your videos is like, just because you struggle with like the extroverted feeling FE of knowing what to respond, it doesn't mean that you don't care. It doesn't mean that you aren't thinking about it. And so that I find is really interesting in how you're sort of peeling back the curtain of like, here's how an INTJ, I mean, you're just one example, but how an INTJ could look at things or think about things. Mm-hmm. So do you want to start off by sharing maybe a little bit of how would you say, like, when you first discovered you're an INTJ, like, did you instantly feel like you related like 100% to the description, or were there parts that you didn't really relate to?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I had actually, my husband was in a master's course for mediation, and he was in a section that working on something with Carl Jung and some other things. And he actually had to have me take the test as a part of his class. And I remember I was busy. It was in the morning, and I like didn't have time to take it. And so I went through it like quickly. I remember getting at the end, like, you're the architect. And I literally just looked at the title and I was like, I'm not really good at math. And I was like, this is stupid. And I just clicked right out of it. And I told him, like, I told her what it was, and I didn't look into it anything past then. I wasn't ready at that point, time-wise or in my mentality, to kind of go into what that realm was. But then a few years later, like you said, I had that instance where it was really just a moment where I saw a deficit in myself, because usually I'm able to figure out the best way to respond to a situation if I have to. I can always kind of like reduce down to like, okay, how can I react to this? How can I make a decision towards something? And I was in a decision, I was faced with a decision with someone facing like these intense emotions, who's in close proximity to me. It's like the universe is saying like, hey, you're here in this area. You have to address the situation that's happening around you.
Yeah.
And I just I could not respond to it at any level. And then because I couldn't respond to it, here's this girl who had just lost her mother who's crying behind me in an office, and I can't even be human enough to turn around and like do any action because I could not rationalize what would be the most appropriate action at that time and like rationalize what she could need. That I was just like, I felt bad for her, but then I was like, oh my gosh, like I have an actual problem here that I need to figure out how to deal with. And so that is what sent me down the hole of what is this thing right now? I know where the hole is, sort of. What is this hole and how do I fill it and how do I make it better? Because I'm like, if I face a situation like this now, I'm sure something like this will happen again and it'll manifest in some other way down the line. And I did not want that to happen because as someone with NI as a first function, it's like you want to be prepared for the sensory chaos that may come down the line. And it seems kind of insensitive to call someone else's emotions like sensory chaos, but in many ways we interpret it towards that because it's something it's like happening real life right now. And what do I do with this? And so I just didn't want to be in that situation again. And I didn't want to feel so non-human around someone who is going through a very human experience. So
and I feel like even just in listening to how you describe that, what I'm hearing is that it seems like, so for one, I want to say that I really relate and agree with how you described, I noticed a deficit in myself, because I think that's kind of how people can become interested in this, is we all have a deficit in some area and it's impossible to not, and sort of like realizing that and getting curious about it. It's almost like you were viewing yourself as the system and you're trying to optimize it. And you're like, oh wait, there's this sort of piece missing. What do I do? And so that I think really displayed your NI and TE. And I also just realized a parallel with myself is that it's so interesting is that you're experiencing so much empathy for this person, but you didn't show any of it because you wanted it to be right. You didn't want to say something that would sound fake or anything, right?
Yeah.
And I feel that all the time when like I'm stuck in a problem and I'm thinking about it and I don't know what to do, like to solve it. And it can seem like I'm not thinking about it. So like with my TI, it's like if I haven't made a conclusion, it could seem like I haven't thought it through. And then people will give me like, oh, why don't you just try this? And it's like, that was the first thing I thought of. I didn't think that would work or something.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's just an uncomfortable ground, but it's like, I didn't like the fact that it seemed so uncomfortable. And so it's like, and TE wants to fix things. And so I was like, in order to fix the situation in the future, I need to fix myself first. So.
So you discovered you were an INTJ. And before I go in and ask you, because for those who don't know, I'm going to be asking the same questions that I tend to ask people when I'm helping them find their type. But do you want to also describe, I'm curious if you can name any sort of misconceptions that you think people have about the INTJ?
Yeah. So kind of to follow up on your last question, because I didn't totally answer it, was when I finished reading the profile, like when I actually was ready to, and I actually read through it, it was a moment. I read through the whole thing. I don't even remember what test it was on, but the description was very accurate for myself. And I remember for the first time, like I just cried when I first read through it, which is not a common occurrence, obviously. But like I read through it, I started crying. So I was like, at least I know one other person in this entire world understands what the inside of my brain is like. At least one.
That's how I felt too. I love that way of phrasing it. But
yeah. And so that was a very kind of surreal experience, because I had just assumed kind of like younger in my life that like this is just kind of how my brain was, and I knew I couldn't relate to people in certain ways, and I had to play the human game in a lot of ways to kind of get through and survive in life, and that was fine. I just kind of accepted it as a fact. And so that was really interesting. And then then you get into the community, and then you see what some of the misconceptions are in terms of INTJs. And I found, I think like it really comes down to are people in it for the growth, or are they in it for, you know, just being social and having someone to bitch with? Which, you know, if someone needs it for that, great. You know, if they need to, if that's their therapy at the end of the day, is to be in some little MBTI group and like bitch to their other friends who, you know, they're all the same type together, however they define that, and they need that, okay, that's great. That's not why I was in there though. I was in there
I
to
could
like,
not have said that better. I love that.
I was in there to figure some shit out, and I wanted, I was looking for people who were more oriented towards that mindset, because I really was there to solve. I wasn't there to have fun. I wasn't there to make friends necessarily. I was there to solve something that I saw as being a problem. And of course, you do end up coming across those people. But one thing that I saw kind of, oh my gosh, Cindy. One thing I saw perpetuated in the community was this whole fact of that INTJs are, you know, like you said, kind of mentioned that they're cold, that they're very like matter of fact in terms of how they talk about things, and just kind of like this coldness towards the world that I don't really, it's not that I don't resonate with that. I know there's times I can come across as very direct and very like kind of clear cut in terms of what I need or what I don't need. But I think it's just like that FU void. If we're especially kind of in the tunnel of trying to solve something, we're kind of on our one track to like get that one NI goal accomplished, that we will often just like, we completely tune out any pleasantries as they might exist, because we're just rolling so forwards towards that direction. And but the thing is like at our core, are we cold people? Well, no, we have FI very much a marshmallow of a function. And and so we're not. It's just kind of how we prioritize things. So I saw that as being a big misconception. And then also, I think the misconception of like all INTJs do is like read books and like critique people's spelling, which I thought was funny, because I'm not a good speller. I mean, I'm decent. I'm okay, but I'm not going to be the one to like pick out other people's mistakes, because it's sensory, and I'm just not paying attention to it nearly as much as I probably should sometimes. So
Yeah.
I think that was a misconception I saw. And then I'll read books to get information to go then do something with it, versus just like, I'm not a leisurely book reader in terms of just reading for the sake of doing nothing but that for my own DI, for my own FI, just because I like to do it. I'm sure people do who are INTJs, but I'm more going in, getting the thing, solving, going out.
Yeah, because for those of you watching that are familiar with objective personality, you are consume last, right?
Yes, I am consume last.
And what is your stack with that?
Blast, play, sleep, consume.
Okay, yay. So we're the same order of all that. So because
Nice.
I relate a lot. It's like I'm reading something so that I can blast it, probably. Like, so I can share it.
That's what we do.
Yeah. Another thing I want to address too is that there's a lot of talk on the internet, and a lot of people searching for the INTJ female, the unicorn, because they don't exist, right? And the way I tend to see things like this is just that gender and socialization can impact how you might manifest yourself. But how do you see that? Because a lot of people are like, oh, well, INTJ women are different or something. But how do you see that? Because, you know, I think a lot of that could be based on just assumptions, or I don't know. Like,
I don't know either. And honestly, I don't know what it is about my functions, about my stack, but I do have a hard time seeing how other people see me, like how I'm objectively seen by someone else, versus how I kind of see like my own like view. Maybe that comes down to like an FIFE thing. I'm not really sure. But, you know, that's always been interesting. And there are people who have said, you know, I don't think it's a bragging point to me, but they have said, I have never met anyone like you before. Like, I've never met someone who kind of perceives life this way, who goes through life with these initiatives, who a lot of it is about like my drive and energy towards things, like how I kind of go through. But I mean, I don't really know. I don't know if it's just like there's less people or, but the thing is like, what does that matter at the end of the day? Like what, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, well, what are you creating from your life? Like, what are you turning out of it? And I think people can, you know, create amazing things no matter what type they are. And no matter how they get there, everyone has their own interpretation and their own journey on how to make those things. And so the affect of how you are as a person from the day to day, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's interesting to some people.
Yeah. I guess like my take on things where like, because INTJs are stereotyped as being very like cold and all that, and I think that maybe INTJ women don't come off as cold to as men. I don't know, but I guess what I want to say is like that no matter who you are, if you are an INTJ, you do have FI. And how that's expressed is going to be different. And maybe not every INTJ is going to be as interested as Lindsay is in understanding the feeling side. But that doesn't mean that, I guess, other INTJs won't relate with, I guess, having feelings. So, yeah.
And I think some of that too is like, it depends what we have in our IJ box for that time. And so like IJs will have this box of things that they're very incessant on either like figuring out, you know, and like we could stay in that same box of subject matter for years and just have a great time just going back to that box over and over again. So for me, discovering like the FE function and like how it manifests and how it works, it's just a really fascinating journey, because even up until this point, with how much I feel as though I've learned, I still feel as though I'm so far away from like utilizing it in an effective way. And something I actually realized as I was watching one of your videos was, you know, you talk about a lot of other personality types quite often, right? You know, you talk about, you know, the things about this one and about this one and how these ones might work together or not. And I realized often people ask me to do those sorts of videos on my channel. Like, they're like, can you talk about how INFPs and ENFPs are different in this way? Or can you make a video about how INTPs can do these things? And like, I don't make any videos like that. Like, I don't segment the other types. Yeah.
Oh my God. Because I got a comment recently where someone said, hey, please do more ENFJ videos. And I actually asked like 5 friends. I was like, would it be like, what is the correct ratio of ENFJ videos I should be doing? Because I don't want to only be talking about me.
Right.
So like, it's funny because I know Dave and Shannon from Objective Personality recently did a video about talking it out in FE. And they were talking about how for their TE, they have like certain friends that they discuss certain topics with about TE. And I so do that with FE, where it's like, I don't know. I need to like ask like how I should feel about this. Like I need to figure out like with certain friends, like how do I approach this? And it's interesting how you just sort of instinctively were like, well, I'm an INTJ, so I could talk about me because it's the information I have, right?
Yeah.
You know, and how I'm like concerned with if it seems like I don't care about others.
Yeah. And that's like the thing is like I think because of the fact that I don't have that FE function, that, you know, a lot of what you're talking about is like, you're so in tune with the values of other types and like what's important to them. So like if someone was an INTP, you're already thinking in the realm of like, well, what do INTPs value? What could be valuable to them in this video? What could, you know, what could I tune into? And it's like, I think because I don't have that function, that it feels like, I'm like, I don't know what INTPs would like. I mean, I know in theory how they should want things to be, what may be a problem for them. And I can talk about it in like a logistical sense, but to me that also like doesn't sound like, it just seems kind of inauthentic to me doing it that way too. So it's I feel like that FE function is so valuable there, because it's like you just have this instinct of what will the people in this video really need, you know?
Thanks
And
for
so
saying that, because I think what I'm realizing is that it's not just my FE that I feel the need to do all these videos, but it's also my FE that I am paying attention to, and I am like, it's how I learn. It's how I learn type. Is in order to even really understand my type, I need to also understand the others. I'm sure you do that too, like with NI, like wanting to see the whole pattern.
Right.
But it's like, I feel like even before I had the confidence in my like TI and sharing anything, I felt like that was almost the first thing I grasped, is like, oh, what do they need, or what do they feel? And it was like these sort of vague things that I picked up based on the types, but I didn't, like, the theoretical knowledge like came after. But yeah, like just observing how people are and and how they feel about things is a lot easier. But
yeah, and like you said, I want to study like the other types, the other functions, like how they manifest in other people, for the sake of like my NITE toolbox. So it's like when I'm speaking with someone like that, perfect, I know what functions they're using, I can tune right into their conversation, and it could be very cohesive. Like that's one thing that I feel like I have put a lot of work into, is that no matter what type the person is, I feel like I can bring myself to a place where I can communicate with them and we can understand each other. Because I'll move my own FI, what I like to talk about, what I like to do, in order to NT figure out the conversation to make the objective go from A to B. But it's like a very logistical way of looking at typology versus like, you know, I can facilitate like all of these types, you know, like give them the value that they need on a spectrum. So I just thought that was really interesting, of how you actually use FE in a way that like isn't really talked about. So
yeah, thank you for observing that, because it's definitely something that I just sort of naturally do without thinking. So yeah. Oh, and one last thing too is, I know I've said this in a couple videos, is that I always, in my view of INTJs, I'm always like, there are the INTJs that are curious about FE. There are the ones that aren't and are just judging me as doing something worthless. Like, and so that's why I really appreciate your curiosity, because I do think that I really enjoy INTJs, and I feel like I can get along with them so well, when I feel like when INTJs are like viewing FE as like this puzzle that they're figuring out, and I'm like, oh yay, like I'm being useful. It's like such a great
so
like
funny
rapport, because I'm like, oh cool, you can figure out whatever, I don't care. Like it doesn't bother me at all, because I feel like my NI is also trying to figure things out, so I can relate.
That's such a good way to say it.
So I'm like, sure, I'll be a test subject.
Oh my gosh, it's like it's something I can't escape with my functions. It's like everything comes down to like, oh, you know about this thing, give me all of your information, so I can like shortcut my way to knowing what I need to know. Like,
oh my god, that is so true. Is that I was actually talking recently about how I feel like NI, I don't want to ever have to learn the hard way. If I can figure out something without experiencing it, that would be great. Like if I can just hear what worked for someone else and then try that. I don't know. Like I never want to fall on my face in the SE if I don't have to.
Oh, you know? Yeah. It's like we're always downloading points of reference and then using them against each other to triangulate what is the best possible option.
Absolutely. So, okay, the first question to ask you, to sort of paint a picture of how an actual INTJ is, oh no, where did this go? Can you describe just a typical day and explain how you usually invest your time? And if you have a morning routine or evening routine, be as detailed or lack of detail as you feel you can.
So my day-to-day right now it's relatively intense. So be it known that if you're an INTJ at some other point in life, but the thing is I'll get those Facebook memories that will come up, and I'm like, who am I kidding? This has been the recurring pattern of my entire life. So I get up at 5 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and Saturday. And then Tuesday and Thursday, I get up at 6, and then on Sunday is like my one day to sleep in. So, and then in the morning, I'll go and I'll do some sort of workout before I go and actually start work. Because if I don't, I work at a computer all day, like over the next 12 hours. So if I don't do something physically active in the morning, it won't happen. And I'll just solidify into a statue of a human by like the end of the week. So
yeah,
I'll exercise in the morning, and then I'll go and I'll walk my dog. I'll go and basically get my things ready. I'll go to work. I work like a 9 to 5, or 9 to 6 or 9 to 7, depending on the day. And then after that, on Monday, Wednesdays, on Monday and Wednesdays, I then go and work on Snug, which is, the business I just recently launched. And then on Saturday, I do that all day for like about 10 hours on Saturday.
Yeah. If you want to pitch that or share that, I could link it below if you want to.
Yeah. If anyone wants to check out snug.me, that's the startup that I recently launched, and it was birthed out of the knowledge actually of FE and how human connection is going to be more valuable now and in the future, and even more in the future, just because of how our world is becoming more automated and how we are really kind of pulling away from that as a society. And so it's built on that foundationally, but it also has to do with YouTubers and connecting with their subscribers. So
cool.
That's that. Yeah. So that's what I do on Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. And then on Tuesday after work, I'm working on YouTube videos. Thursday, I'm usually editing and doing some stuff with I have another meeting, a snug meeting from my house on that evening after work. And then on Fridays after work, I'm usually following up on some like YouTube, like some like personal business stuff. Then I'm doing my laundry every Friday, because if I don't do it every Friday, it will not get done. And then, like I said, on Saturday, it's a full day of Snug all day. And then on Sunday, I usually have consultations like through Snug. And then I'm also filming on Sunday. And that's my entire week.
Awesome. So one thing I want to point out from this that I'm hearing that I find interesting is that your default, when I asked you that question, was you kind of gave me this whole theme, as opposed to literally a typical day, where it's interesting because I relate a lot to you, is that whenever I try and organize things, I have to think of it as like I'm trying to get into a cadence of things. Like I've actually been thinking a lot about like, when is my favorite time for doing laundry? Like things like that. And I feel like you could really see the NI in everything that you're saying, where I guess what I'm trying to do with this sort of series too is that like, you didn't sit here and say, oh, I spend my time being really innovative and thinking about intuition, like, cause nobody like literally answers the question as like what the definition of NI is. But what I'm seeing from you is that the way you're thinking about things is of the general theme and this pattern that you are trying to extend onto the week. And it's like you're trying to find this perfect cadence and then like replicate it. And then like, I guess also I'm impressed too, which I'm sure getting the sensory down has been something you've worked on. But as far as like, getting up on time and all of that, how is that like for you? Like, has that been hard for you, or like knowing like the times of day and setting all those meetings? What is that like?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I definitely have I don't go by like a literal schedule, even though sometimes things fall into a literal schedule. But I'm usually not like super time bound by my personal things. I just know on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, I need to be doing these certain things. I need to have them done by the end of the day. And if I don't, I know that will screw something else up later in the week. And I'll basically have to do more work on some day, and I can't deal with that. So it's like, I'm very, and this is also a very masculine NI thing, is that like, I'm driven to completion always, like whether it's within the day, within the project, it's like that NI focus of like, I have to be pulled in. And so because of that, I will put in mechanisms, because I'm so driven to the NI, I'll put in mechanisms to set alarms to get things done. I will like, I'll NT figure my way out to get those things done by the end of the week, so that by the next week I can start something new. But I also keep my schedule, like I keep the sensory kind of flexible by the means of, if I need to move a block of like doing something, I can switch it out with a different day, and like I can flip flop those so that they can still fit. If something, you know, crazy happens, I can still fit them in. And then I can still get the thing done. So it's just, and yeah, it's always kind of been that way.
That's a good point of how you're saying that you keep the sensory flexible, but it seems like your intentions are a little bit more stable, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And also, I just am curious about the masculine NI thing. Can you explain that a little bit more of how that might be different than feminine NI, if you think you know? Just because my partner, I believe, is masculine NI, and I believe would relate to what you're saying, but I don't as much as feminine NI, and I'm curious about that. Of like, is it more driven to like completion, or can you expand on that?
Yeah, I would say that that's very much the way I see it, is like, it's always the like the light at the end of the tunnel, like at the end of the day, like that's always the goal all of the time. And so, and the thing is, what makes it kind of a psychotic function is that the sensory things that end up coming in the way, we're so looking down the road at that thing of where we want to go, we'll not only like run over the sensory, like either like literally or metaphorically, but like we'll run over it and not even complain about it, because it's so movable that it's just so out of our focus. Whereas like if you're a savior NI and you're feminine, like you have a feminine NI savior, it's like you'll be driven towards like the NI goal, but when you come into the sensory and like you knock things over, it's almost like you're more obligated to address it, because it's like you've knocked it over. And so you're like, oh man, I wish I didn't knock this stupid cup over, but now I've knocked it over, so now I have to pick it up. Whereas like masculine NI is like, I knocked what cup over? How long ago was that? What day was it? You know? And so it's more, and it's, again, it's not like us like not trying to pay attention. It's just that our attention is so heavy weighted because it's a savior function and it's masculine in a different direction.
Yeah. My INFJ masculine NI partner, like, will literally, it's funny you say it's kind of psychotic, but like, we'll like literally be like, I can't do anything but finish writing this, like something like for work. And like, I'll like say something and I don't even think she hears me or something. It's like, she's just so like, I can't do anything until this is done. And like, I kind of can be that way, but like, even for me, like if something comes up, even if it's just something emotionally comes up, then I will feel like, oh, well, I still am going to pursue this goal, but it might not be exactly in the time that I thought. But yeah. Also, okay, another thing about what you were saying is that it seems like you really know what you prefer to invest in and like what is really important to you. And something that I have observed about INTJs, for example, so, well, one, it's pretty badass that you have a 9-to-5 job and you're working on a startup and you're doing YouTube. And it seems as though it's like for NI, it's all these little things you're passionate about, all these like projects, and it's like fun. It's like, this is something that matters. And so it's, you make the time, you craft your life in that way. Yeah. Where in my experience, it seems as though INTJs tend to understand that life has these trade-offs of like, you could do this or you could do that. It just kind of a matter of what you choose. Would you
Mm-hmm.
relate to that? Because it seems like a lot of people that will be like, oh, well, I don't have the time to do this or whatever. You might be more likely to be like, okay, if this really matters to me, what can I move around my schedule? Or like, how can I
Mm-hmm.
invest in what I want to invest in?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, the way I've always said it, like my entire life, like I have like pieces of writing where I've written this when I was really young, is like time is the most valuable resource. Like there's nothing else on earth in this physical realm that matters as much as time does, because that's literally the only currency that we actually have here on earth, you know? And so,
Yeah.
and the thing is like, so to me, every minute I spend is like an investment in something, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's either an investment in things that build me as a human, or it's an investment in things that really don't produce anything. And I'm just very conscious of that. And when I do things, or I'm in situations where I feel as though that time is being wasted, at the end, like it hurts my FI soul in this very like real way, because I'm like, it's I can imagine it being related to someone who just like sees money being flushed down the drain, right? If that's like very important for them to be making money, right? And they're just like flushing it down the toilet. It's something that's very important to them. And like to me, it's like when I'm wasting time, it's like, and like this is a place where like I'll have jealousy sometimes come in, is like people who sometimes like don't have like and the thing is like I make my schedule what it is, like I'm fully responsible for that. But then like when people have these like freer schedules and like they're not as just like intense with like their time, and like they have like days off and things like that, I'm like, oh, I'm so jealous of like that free time that you have, and like it looks so enticing. But at the same time, I'm my worst enemy there, because it's like I know if I gave myself more of that, it would only make me almost more anxious to be like, but I'm not using it for anything. So it's kind of a self-perpetuating cycle that I know I'll work it out as I continue to evolve as a human, but it can be very strange. But time, very important. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So would you say that you are pretty concerned with, like, before you do anything, you can see what like the potential fruits of your labor might be? And are you like always looking at like if it is growing fruit or if it's going stale, like things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very aware usually beforehand of what will be worth my time and what won't be worth my time.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually not where my question is. It's sometimes it's more like I'll be kind of forced to like do things for either other people or for other reasons, like whatever the reason is, that will use up that time. And then that can be difficult if I don't see it as being as valuable of a use as I could have made it like on my own. And so that can sometimes be difficult, but yeah, just like highly aware of where I could be spending it in the best way, and always kind of wanting to do that.
Cool. So interesting. So you do feel like you always know what's worth your time, because I would say the opposite. That's something I'm working on, where like I relate to you so much about the time and like I'm always focused on wanting to invest my time wisely. But what's interesting is that I feel like I'm starting to get more intense about my schedule in a similar way as you, and it's only because I have had to realize that like my FE is going to naturally give my time to others, and it's been like me trying to regain my control of that. And I literally hate sticking to a schedule, but the hard part is that it's because I don't know what is more worth it to me, or like I don't know how much time is needed or to be allotted in certain things. And so like
interesting.
That's what like I'm trying to figure out right now, is like, because I feel like I'm completely on board with the fact that I should have a schedule, because if I don't, then I might get carried away and distracted with other people or other things that aren't worth my time. And so it's like, okay, cool. Then I want it to be worth my time and I want to live my life for me. But then it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know if one video a week or like, I don't know how many is okay, or like what's going to burn me out. So
Mm-hmm.
like figuring out like the amount and like how much time
Mm-hmm.
things takes is so hard for me. Like, do
That's
you?
that's
How
just
do
that's I just hear so much like it's such like an FE like TI like on the polls
yeah.
thing, because it's like I'm hearing so much like I don't I don't know how much I like almost should be investing in myself, in my TI self.
Yeah.
You know? Like what is the amount that I am worth giving to in this NI capacity, right? Because it's like the
Yeah.
default is just like throw it at FE. FE is like driving the boat, and it's like taking NI like with it. And then like TI is down there like, hey, like I want the investment too. And you're like, yes, I see you. You're important.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm gonna get to you. Wait, what do you need again? You know, and it's
Yes.
I haven't one of my best friends from college is an ENFJ,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw her go through the same thing of it's the battle of like I want to give this to myself, but it's like, am I doing it right? Like, am I doing it good? Like, am I doing a
Yeah.
good like TI self thing? And then it's like you kind of will like default back to the tribe and be like, am I doing the thing? Like, do you guys like that I'm doing this over here? And
Yes.
yeah, it's
Oh
really
my gosh.
interesting.
Yeah. So one example I can give really quickly is, I don't know how long it took you to realize that you prefer working out in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Like, was that instant for you, or did you have to do some trial and error?
I mean, I hate it. It honestly just came out of the fact that because I started working on Snug in the evenings, that's when before I had worked out. And so it's like I had to push it to the morning, otherwise it wouldn't happen at all. And I know that wouldn't be sustainable for me to like remain healthy long term. And so it's like I was forced to put it early, and I don't consider myself a morning person, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
I had no other TE choice. Like what FI liked didn't
Yeah.
matter, you know?
It
So
seems like you have pretty good self-control, would you say, with decision
yeah,
things?
I do. I don't know really what to attribute that to. I don't know if it's a T
Mm-hmm.
over F thing, if it's a consume last thing,
Yeah.
because I'm
Because
not really, I'm not taking in for the self spectrum as much, but I don't, yeah.
Because I guess what I'd say is like a huge problem with me is like I create these like intense morning routines, and I'm like, okay, I know, like, and I will come to similar conclusions of like, if I don't wake up in the morning, or if I don't work out in the morning, then I'm not going to do it. And then I'll say, oh, well, and it's also going to help me get moving for the day. And it actually, I had to make the conclusion that it does actually help me be more productive in the morning. But then I'll have another day where I wake up really tired, and then I'm like, wait a minute, actually, if I wake up in the morning and do something I hate, then it makes it hard for me to get out of bed. And so instead what I should do is I should first thing in the morning make coffee, and then sit in my bed and like let myself have like some me time. And so like I go back and forth between like, well, which one of these actually works? And
Yeah.
like I keep trying and I don't know which one works. And so
That's so interesting.
yeah, and so it's like I feel like I'm wrestling with the same sort of question of like I need to arrange my time well, but then I keep getting upset with myself because I do something that I think is going to work, and like I'm trying to take care of myself, but then like it doesn't end up
Yeah.
working.
Yeah. So the way like I see you approaching it is that you're looking at it very much from like this like TI for yourself, but like also like the outwards expression of like how it makes you like feel like in the time it's happening. Like that's kind of the word I've been attaching to FE more and more recently, is like the expression of. And so it's like you're like looking at this expression of spectrum of like how is this feeling like affecting you, you know, but also is a TI working. And then but for me it's like it's just more of a logistical, it's a very the way I approach it is very NITE, because it's like I know if I don't maintain this pattern, it's going to be harmful to me in the future. Like I know that it will produce X, Y, and Z results in the future down the road if I don't do this thing. FI don't like it, but TE says it needs to work by doing it these days a week at this time. And that's what TE works. It's like, has nothing else to do with anything else. It's just like my saviors, like, and masculine TE also. So it's like masculine NI, masculine TE. This is what I know is going to work for the long-term plan, even if we don't like it. So it's not
okay,
too bad.
that makes sense, because I think really what I'm always trying to do is like release emotional resistance to things, because that's what like facilitates me doing it. But I think it just seems like your TE, you're already motivated to do what works, whether or not it feels good. Where like
exactly.
I'm not very motivated by that. And I would imagine that you get more of a sort of dopamine hit every time it worked. Like something like, because that's what you want to do. You want it to work. I don't get that. Like, I don't care. So it's like, sometimes I feel like I am like this, like taking care of myself is like this whiny child that only wants to do what I want to do, and I'm like reasoning with it to make sure it's happy and like facilitating its, I don't know, making it somehow work. But
yeah, that's such a good way to say it. And like, again, it's like that IJ, EJ, like those, you know, my FI is a demon, but like, it's like my DI is just like a little bit higher and your DI is just a little bit lower. And so it's like, I feel like those little changes is what makes for those habits to kind of manifest differently.
Yeah, true. You probably have more confidence just in the DI as well of what you want, or, you know, what would work with your identity. So let's compare, I guess, a typical day to what would be an ideal, like perfect, I guess, day. What would you love to spend your time doing if you had all the resources in the world to support you? So this question is kind of open-ended. Perhaps your typical day is pretty close to that ideal day, which would be amazing if that's the case. It could be, however you want to interpret it.
Okay. So a lot of FI in that question. What would you love to do? So I think in terms of how my circumstances of life and now are, and like with my current, just like the things in life that I have in front of me in terms of like the SE reality.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm generally like living my like more perfect days just based off what my goals are and my need to accomplish them. Like I'm kind of doing everything that I have to do. But in terms of like, am I necessarily doing things that like I like and enjoy? No. So like I'm doing the things that are, you know, most important. But the thing is like, yes, there is that value and that long-term value importance. But it's like, if we're talking about, you know, if you just like had like a day to do like whatever you wanted.
Yeah, so it could be, maybe you can think of it as like if you were on vacation, if it was a Saturday, or maybe even like 20 years from now when you're like maybe completely self-employed, if that's your goal, or like what would it look like once you've sort of like made it based on whatever you're working on?
Okay. So I would say it would probably be something around like creating content, but for the sake more of like expression versus for the sake of like instruction and like logistics and like how it plays into something. So like almost like using my NI and my FI more together for, you know, okay, let's get a team of people together who have various talents in these areas, and like let's create an amazing production related to this thing on video, and you know, planning how to basically, you know, manifest some kind of like interesting concept or interesting point through like an artistic piece that really gets people thinking, that really you know, provokes the mind. So there's like a purpose oriented nature for it, but it's not just I don't know, it's just more, there's no schedule attached to it as, you know, hard. There's no I guess it's just more like a more passion driven artistic project, but that still has value to me. Would probably be what I would do.
Yeah. See, and there's a lot of NI in what you just said, in the sense that when you are thinking about this ideal future, you know exactly what concept you're talking about. But you don't know literally. Like, it's not like you're like, oh, I know that I want to get this job or write this book. And like, I don't know, maybe you have some more specific goals. Not that NJs can't have a specific goal, but what I see you really zeroing in on is like the why behind everything that you do, and like wanting to extend that of like, it seems like you're the sort of person that, you know, likes to work on things, likes to create things, and like make that impact on the world, and like, you know, do something you're passionate about. And I would say like that's probably pretty typical of NJs. I'm thinking about this now, but it's like, okay, like your dream life of like pretty much you want to be creating something that, you know, it's like your vision, or like putting this concept out into the world. I feel like I relate to that a lot. And, you know, wanting the sensory to be a little bit vague so that you can see what comes up, right?
Yeah. And like in general, it's like in the other aspects of life, I feel as though like generally like I'm very satisfied. Like I've like accomplished like things like for myself, like I've accomplished things like my needs in life, and like, you know, like I feel like I've kind of done the human thing like for myself fine. Like at the end of the day, like if I die tomorrow, I would be completely content, because it's like I feel like I've done the thing really well. But now it's like, okay, well, what's the journey now? And it's like now it's creating the impact. Like now it's you know, I don't want to say like changing lives, because that just sounds like so strange, but it's like, you know, if you're able to make someone's life easier, or if you're able to make them feel more understood through something, or if you're able to you know, like just like generate motion within the world in a certain direction that you feel like it should be moved, like why not do that? Now that's the game for the rest of time, you know. It's just, it's like I'm happy with the other stuff, like it's all good, you know.
Cool. Yeah. And I also think it was pretty TE of you as well, how you first answered the question, because I've noticed that TE tends to like set these sort of logical parameters or boundaries of like, within this context of within these facts, you are doing the ideal, right? Like within the fact of that, you know, you need your 9-to-5 job, you know that, because I would imagine that, okay, maybe let's say your startup completely takes off or something, like are you still going to be working on Sundays, or would you change that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know, you know.
Yeah. See, that's interesting, because I guess what I'm seeing too, that I've noticed about TE and FI, is that it's like, you know, that given these circumstances and these facts, it makes sense for you to work as much as you do, probably, because you know what you're working toward.
Exactly.
But it's not necessarily that your entire life you want to work on Sundays or I don't know, maybe you do. If you love what you do, maybe you'd have the time.
I really feel when I'm doing my best as like a human in terms of my cognition and like my mental health, I'm giving myself a half a day to do nothing once a week. And at least a half a day. If I get a full day there, like once in a while, wow, like I feel like my creativity goes through the roof. I just feel like my cognition is operating so much better because I've given myself time to decompress and not be processing as much like at a high intensity as I normally am. But like in the past 10 months or so, I haven't been able to give myself that. So it's been a struggle because I feel like my creativity has suffered as a part of it because it's not having that resting time. And it's also like I'm getting less sleep. but you know, I just look at it and I'm like, this is like a season of life I'm in right now, and that, like you're saying, down the line that will be able to change, and I will be able to have that half a day back to rest my brain and not, you know, like not be processing as much. And so I'm looking forward to that, but it's also like I'm enjoying the season that I'm in, because I know that this is going to build into the time that releases that that next season. So
the way you're thinking about it as like this season of life, I relate to so much. I feel like that's very NI, and that's very much what I'm going through right now, is that I have a 9-to-5 job. I'm doing YouTube and I'm working on a business with my really good friend. So I feel like I'm trying to create the schedule of like, well, and I work remotely. So it's 9 to 5, it's full time, but we don't have a set schedule. So, I mean, I have to get my work done. And so, and it is full time, but trying to manage everything. And like, I do work nonstop. Like I really do. And I probably work, about the same as you.
Yeah.
But luckily, a lot of it's fun. If it wasn't fun, I don't think I'd have the energy for it. And I'm sure if you didn't love it, like you wouldn't do it either. But what I'm interested in, though, in comparing us even, is like, what does doing nothing look like to you?
Oh, so doing nothing, like if I have an actual like do nothing day, it means, or like a do nothing half a day, it means that I can, you know, wake up at whatever time I want to, and then I can have like the time to make breakfast in the morning in like a leisurely manner. And then I will usually like spend some time with my dog, or I'll just like do something like, I'll just like this is funny. Like this is literally, I'll like put out a yoga mat on the floor and just lay on the floor for like an hour and just stare at the ceiling.
Oh my God. I need to do that more.
And afterwards it's like, you feel so great. It's just like literally doing nothing. And it's probably like, someone's probably going to be like, Lindsay, that's like what meditating is. And it's like, yeah, okay, I understand. That's probably what meditating is, which lots of people say I should get into more, and maybe I will get into that box one day. But and then just not having to have to do anything is what it comes down to for me. So I'm trying to like, if I do have things to do that day, I'm saying, nope, I don't get to start that, or I don't get to start thinking about that thing till like 1:00, let's say.
That's so interesting, because I have also come to the conclusion that I do need about half a day a week to do nothing. But what I have a problem with is that, okay, so I need more time in silence. I need more time doing what you're doing, of like, I'm literally going to lay down and do nothing. And every time I feel myself craving that, I have trouble giving it to myself, which is probably very EJ, right? But so I relate a lot. I think it's pretty NI to be like, I am attaching myself from this goal. There is nothing I'm working toward. I am free, right? Like there's no shoulds. There's nothing that I'm, focused on. It's almost like a brain break, right? For me, on those brain breaks, it sometimes just involves texting 5 people at a time, or talking to my significant other, or watching TV, which I guess what I'm having a hard time realizing is that that's not always relaxation.
Yeah, but to me that's not.
Yeah, but I still need it, because I still need that FE feedback. So it still does feel like, okay, I'm unplugging from work. Like I do need to unplug. But how often do you do that? Like, how often do you find yourself like, how do you put talking to people into your schedule?
So in terms of talking to people, it's like, for me, it's very work oriented. Like if I'm talking to someone for like a job that has to like be spoken to physically, then I talk to people. But other than that, it's like, I really don't talk to people, unless it's for work. Like, and that's something that I've been marinating on like the past, few months too, is like, since I've been so separated from like humans, like even more in the past 10 months, it's like I can count on my fingers like 2 times I've seen friends like outside of work in like the past 10 months, like twice in the real world, and like talk to people on the phone. Like I really don't do that. But it's like, I feel like I should, but then it's like, you don't want to do something because you just feel like you should do it. But there's also that element of like maintaining relationships. But anyway, so usually like if I don't have to be in contact with anyone, it's like I'm not very concerned with like looking at my phone or trying to check in with people, or because I don't really have that need to converse for like processing like on an emotional spectrum. You know, my processing has to happen on like an internal spectrum. So I feel like
that would make sense though, that talking to people with work could suffice for that, because you're talking about ideas and stuff.
Yeah, the TE is very satisfied there. But I think for my FI, and like when I think of processing, a lot of the times I'm like referring directly to my FI, is like if I have to like kind of like process like the day, like my sleep energy, you know, it's like I have to kind of just be in silence and really not talk or not do. And because also blast play at the top. So it's like I'm blast playing through the day, and then it's like I cherish anytime I can just sleep energy for like a few minutes and just like not do.
Yeah. So I have a question. Do you feel like you enjoy work meetings?
No, usually not. I mean, it depends. So like with my startup, yes, like love my business partners. They're amazing humans. One of them lives in Ohio. One of them lives close to me here in Florida. And so like him and I our business meetings are like, we just like have our eye on the goal. And we're also just like, it's just like nerd central. Like, it's just like the things that we talk about, people would walk into the conversation and be like, what the hell are you guys like going off? Why are you so excited about this like array of numbers that will like make this thing, you know? And it's just like, but like we're having like the best time. And so those kind of work meetings, great, because they're producing something, you know, again, it's like related to my FI, like related to the NI. But it's a very T-driven conversation. And so those are fun. But like in terms of like normal work meetings or like meetings with like my 9 to 5, the thing is like most meetings don't really need to be meetings. Like usually they can be emails. Or they could be. And so again, my OCD-ness with time. And it's like, okay, if I feel like that time is being wasted by anyone, then I'm kind of annoyed that it's happening. So
so I guess I was curious because if maybe TE would be more interested in having those sort of work oriented meetings, which I think you can with your business partner. But I feel similarly to you with meetings at work that don't need to happen. I wondered if that could be attributed to me not valuing TE, is that I kind of don't want to have to talk back and forth. I want to be given the space to think, kind of. But yeah, I see that too. I see like not wanting your time to be wasted and wanting it to be efficient and things like that. Well, do you feel like the amount of time that you do talk to people though feels fulfilling?
Yeah, I feel as though like when I do have conversations with people, or like the thing is I realize that I can have like 1 or 2 people in my like very close circle like at any given time, but like at max usually. So it's like people who I'm able to really go down those roads of really like deep and interesting thought. It's like I have like 1 or 2, and it's like almost like my brain can't handle more than that. And like the energy to put into conversations like that just isn't available. So it's like I would rather not than like, you know, than have like a surface level like superficial conversation that I feel like isn't going anywhere. So
because I guess I was curious about like how much of it do you feel like is a should versus how much of it is, oh, you really are just fulfilled that way and that's fine, you know? Because one thing I'll say real quick too, just is that I've noticed with my INFJ partner, who I'm like 90% sure is sleep first, but I'm not totally sure, hasn't been typed.
Mm-hmm.
But she like doesn't ever call anyone, and like doesn't really need to, even with FE. But then whenever she does, it's like, oh my God, why didn't I do that? I really needed that. So I don't know if you feel that way with, where it's like not even just a I should, because I know that her as an INFJ, a lot of the times it's a I should be doing this because her NI knows that her FE really does need that. Like, how do you feel like whenever you do, like, oh, I should be doing this more? Or
I really don't. And I almost like feel like it's like I don't feel like that, but then it's like I almost feel as though other people feel as though I should feel that way. But then it's like I still don't. And so I don't really know what the core of that is. But it's like I think it's like that TE versus FE thing, which is like, let me help you solve something, you know, like put me to work, like put my brain to work for you so I can help you that way, versus like satisfying your emotional needs. Because it's like, my brain isn't attuned to that spectrum on like a level that it feels like it can lift any weight. And so when someone is like, you know, my mom will often like, you know, send me a text and be like, have you called your grandma? Like, have you called your grandma today? And like, it's like, the effort it takes for me just to like, and I hate saying it, but like the effort it takes me just to call and just to be like, hey, like, how's it going? What's going on? It seems like so much work, because it's like, I feel like I'm not solving anything, you know? And so that's more of what's difficult. But it's like, at the same time, I know doing that works for people too. So I don't know, but it's never like a personal need where I'm like, I'm so glad that I did that. If anything, it'll be like, okay, that really worked for them. Like they are, you know, they're better now because I was able to do that. So, okay, it was worth it. But it's like, I don't feel any personal satisfaction really like with it, but it's like, I'm glad it worked if it did.
Yeah. Like, cause I think for me, something that I think a lot of ENFJs could relate to this, but I feel like I have almost like this unlimited amount of energy to have deep conversations with people and like getting to know them. And like, if it were up to me, I would love to just have even more friends, like, and just like call and ask people are doing and discuss life. And like, really, I don't know. I have so much energy for that, but because of the reality, I don't have as much time for that as I would like. So for me, I'm always having to pull back, especially with things like the personality community. So many interesting people, like all the time, saying interesting things on Facebook groups and comments and stuff. I could really get sucked down a hole of interesting conversations where I need to back off a little. I can't. It is, I guess, not efficient for me to be spending my time only doing that.
And that's a good point. And so it's like the same thing. It's like, I enjoy having really interesting conversations with people, like when they're able to happen. And like, I guess when our like brains are tuned towards the same direction, and it's more of like a collaborative journey and discussion versus like a to-do on a checklist, you know? And so it's like, I do enjoy those conversations. Like I do enjoy those journeys through a conversation, but it's like, I guess it really comes down to like where I'm prioritizing my time. And it's like, if I have those conversations, it's more for the sake of my FI and because I'm enjoying it. And if I have TE prioritize something over it, it's like, I don't even look at it as a possibility in my mental landscape at that time.
Is it important for you to feel like you have acquaintances or people that you know that you can relate to and know that you're not alone, even if you aren't talking to them?
Yeah, and I think the typology community has given me access to some people like that, where I've been able to have some of those very like NT and I driven like deep hole like black hole conversations. And I'm like, wow, this person just totally gets it. Like we're speaking 100% the same language. It's amazing. And it's just amazing to be like, just to know that your own cognition isn't alone in the world. And that someone else gets it. So I do appreciate that, even if I'm not in touch with them.
Yeah, because that's something I'm starting to notice for me, that like it is inefficient for me to be spending as much time FEing as I want to. And
Mhm.
so I'm trying to be like, okay, you could just love people. You don't have to like talk to them all the time. It doesn't
Right.
mean that you don't like care or anything.
Yeah.
So another question, and then I think this could be the last question and we could wrap it up after, but
Okay.
I'm interested in if you could describe the biggest point of self-growth for you. What was your turning point? And if you can walk me through a little bit about that journey, if you can. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
specific. If you, yeah.
So outside of like the whole FE situation, I think, and that was kind of like a moment in time that I
Mm-hmm.
defined, but I think overall, one of the biggest growth situations for me has been my, when I really realized that NIing something that was going to happen in the future, like being so focused on like, not allowing the sensory chaos to happen. Like I from years of my life, I can just remember like knowing something in a sensory was going to be coming up in a few days and not being able to think about anything but that, and like making sure every like thing that I could think of that could possibly go wrong was like in the right place, so I didn't have to deal with like a potential problem, or like everything would go off as planned. And it was like I was unable to really like allow myself any breath or any almost like peace in the meantime when I was ramping up to that thing, because I was like so like God forbid the sensory chaos happens, you know?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that makes so much sense from what I've observed with my INFJ. And I think it's great you're talking about this, because I think a lot of times we hear a lot of positives about NI and how great it is in
Mm-hmm.
the community. And like, I think that really what you're describing is what too much NI could look like.
Yeah,
And
it's the
especially,
curse.
yeah, especially since I think a lot of people, since it might be, I don't know if it's rarer, a lot of people say it is,
I don't know
maybe not on the
either.
internet.
Right.
But for people who don't use NI, it might seem mysterious or interesting. So yeah, like, can you talk a little bit more about how that feels and what that was like, of like too much NI?
Yeah, and it's a weird piece. I didn't see it through that outside
Yeah.
perspective, like at that point, because like NI is also like strangely like subjective, like in its own world. And so I wasn't able to kind of detach from it from the point when I was younger, where I could see how much damage it was doing, and like
Mm-hmm.
how really like debilitating of a function, even though it produced great results, how debilitating it was towards my normal life. Because it's like, sure,
Yeah.
I would go walk into a situation like fully prepared and like with such like a level of confidence, and people were just like, wow, like you're so confident like doing this thing, and like you pulled, you know, I always feel safe with when you're in control here, because I know that it's just going to go off with it without a hitch, and you're
Oh
so calm
yeah.
about it. But it's like they don't know that it's like days and days up, or like sometimes it's like weeks and months, like depending what the process is to get to that point, that it's like I have run every mental simulation of what could possibly go wrong, or what
Oh
could,
my God.
or how
Yeah.
to make things possibly go right in the right way in order to achieve that result. And like at the end of the day, it's like, what are we talking about here? It's like that's like the chess player analogy that's attached to INTJs. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, like at the end of the day, it's like, how do I move all the pieces in order to win the game? And it's like that I put that together like much later, but it's like I saw like, okay, but it's like all you're doing is playing chess. Like all you're doing to get to that endpoint is like doing that thing. And what it
Yeah.
does is like when it's out of balance, you're so out of touch with like the enjoyment and the normal things of life. And like it seems like doing anything other than that, and that preparation or that like mental staging to get there, it seems like such a task. But there are things that like shouldn't be a task. Like it should be things like going to like go outside and like get a cup of coffee, or like doing some little stupid thing. You're just
Oh
like,
my God.
if I do
Yeah.
that, I'm gonna die. Like that's how it feels on the inside.
Wow. Okay. So taking a step away from your goal to go outside and take a breather or pause or get coffee feels
Hmm.
terrible then?
Yeah, it feels like, because, and this is another thing about it too, is I think masculine NI, it ramps up slowly until like it's a train going at like 90 miles an hour. And like when you stop it, it has to go through that ramping up process again, because it's piecing together all those pieces of feminine sensory, which are very like scattered. And so it's like we forget them very quickly. And so it's like I have to go through and like piece all of the parts together to get the train rolling and getting back into motion. And now it's going full force. And so then like to put the brakes on, to step away, do this stupid little thing, it's like the energy required, like it just seems like it's too much. Like, and it sounds so dramatic, but like I can't go outside, like it's too much for me. But that's really kind of how it came across. But then I saw what level of like how it was basically just like diminishing like my health and like my mental state of what should be healthy towards me. And I forget exactly when I really pieced this. It was probably around the age of 25-ish that I really started to like be like, okay, I started to tell myself, I'm not allowed to start planning or preparing for this thing until X amount of days before. That's my deadline. It's like my deadline to start the process, start the crazy NI process of that happening. Because I'm like, I can pull it off in this amount of time and still be fine. Like it still will be okay, you know? And if I give myself like a cutoff time to start that, then I'm allowing myself to have more like normal brain time to like have more of a balance before I get there.
Yeah, and it seems like for NI DOMs and INTJs, it's like you could be so focused on optimizing your time
Mm-hmm.
and making sure with full certainty and awareness that it will be great, that
Mm-hmm.
would you say that it could diminish, like it can hurt your quality of life? Like, are you even enjoying life? Some might wonder, like, are you even living if you aren't like stopping to smell the roses, things like that. Like maybe a more like SE, like being fully aware of what's going on. Like, can you celebrate your wins even?
Yeah. Yeah, I know you can't.
Yeah.
And that's what I realized was like the biggest problem, is that the enjoying of like the little things, or like seeing things that were physically in front of me that were just so simple, but like I've never taken the time to even look at them, and being like, wow, I'm missing out on so much of my life because I'm so focused on this stupid NI thing, that at the end of the day, what does even that matter, right? Other than the fact that I'm somewhat responsible because of my dominant function to pull it off, because that's what my brain has told me I have to do. But it's like I'm missing all of these other things. And so once I really realized that, and it's funny, it's like I remember like one evening, like I saw some friends, and I was just kind of like, I had turned off my NI. Like I was just like, I'm just gonna like enjoy being here with them and like enjoy the moment. And this was a few years ago. And we just started like, some people were just like making jokes about something, and someone said something really funny, and I just like started laughing, and like I laughed so hard that I actually cried. And I thought
love
that was a
that. Yeah.
metaphor. Like I thought, I didn't even know people actually did that you could laugh so hard that you
Oh.
actually like cried. And I was like having this experience, and I was
Oh
like,
my God. Yeah.
this is the most wild thing. But it was like I allowed myself to be so present in the moment that I was
Yeah.
able to absorb what was actually happening and why things were actually funny, because I wasn't removed somewhere else. Like I was on
Oh my,
planet Earth, you
yes.
know?
That is so true. And I think that a lot of the reason why NI dominant people could be so, I feel like you drain yourself, like you exhaust
Mhm.
yourself with how you're thinking. And then
Yeah.
that's why you feel like you don't have the energy to do these things,
Hmm.
because you use so much energy, almost more than what's needed, it could seem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I guess just a couple things I'll add that I was thinking about while listening is, so for me as a double observer, I have like a little bit of higher SE. And I'm realizing that something that I've done since high school is the idea of decide to decide later,
Hmm.
which similar to what you're saying of like giving yourself a deadline. But even
Hmm.
then, like, if I find myself in that mode of like overly preparing, I eventually hit this wall where I'm like, no, I am not going to decide. Like I'm not deciding. Like, but see, for me, I still need to make a decision, and the decision is that I'm deciding this other time. So it's not like I'm ever able to really detach. It's like I have trouble detaching from the NI, but like my NI then needs to decide that I'm not, you know. And also another thing that I've been realizing about INJs lately, I guess some advice is that like I feel like it's like you guys could fail more, like feel what failing feels like. I think maybe for some younger INTJs or INFJs that have never really put themselves out there in a way where there might be some sort of failure or backlash or anything, it's like you don't know that you can handle it. So I'm sure even like with your business or with YouTube, like you have put yourself out there in a certain way where that can be hard for INJs to do. I mean, not that INJs aren't fully capable, but like putting yourself out there for then a what if I fail at this could be very difficult. So I think feeling it and feeling that it's a sensation that you could handle is helpful for then NI to be like, oh, okay, then I know how to prepare for this then if it were to happen.
I think too, like, and with like the failure, it's like, you know, like TE tends to like use, you know, like failures as like points of triangulation. It's like, but there's like a double-edged sword to that. So like TE, it's like anytime like I fail at something, it's usually like, okay, it didn't work, like point of triangulation, now I have it more narrowed in towards the way that it will work. But the thing is, like, if the thing I'm doing is attached to my FI, and if it's personal, then it's like I will like go to the ends of the earth to make sure it doesn't fail because it's attached to my values.
That makes sense.
And so, and sometimes in order to like put those things out there, you know, and that was kind of something when I first started Snug that was hard because like it was my baby, you know, it was like my child, and like even asking someone to like participate on the journey with me felt so like exposing, because I'm like, how am I supposed to ask this other person to like buy into my dream? You know, how am I supposed to like, and I was like, you know, it just seems so personal. And it was, but then, you know, some things actually Dave said was like, you know, you have to detach like your FI from what the thing is, you know, like you have to like separate them. Like if it fails, fine. If it's great, fine. But it has nothing to do, like, it's just a thing. And I was like, okay, like, it's just a thing, you know, just make it like the other things. And then once I did that, like, it felt way less personal. And like, then I was able just to move with it better.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I feel like NFJs can do something similar, but we might not even be aware that we're doing it, which is interesting. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me and for sharing that everything, because I feel like we've really gotten to take a look at the INTJ life. Anything else you want to add on?
No, this is great. I was noticing through the whole conversation, I was like, you can really tell that we have the same energy cadence, like the blast, play, sleep, consume, because it's like, I feel like our pace is very matched with like how we converse with each other. And I was like,
you're so right.
And I was like, I feel like that's very much like, it's how you can see the energy cadence on the whole like spectrum of a person throughout the day, but then also through things like conversation. It's like, it's just really, it was really interesting to observe. So
I think that's really true. Fun. Yeah, thank you. I think that's really true, because I've noticed, and this is like the third interview in a row I've done with an NJ, which has been great, which I know it's even our energy pattern being the same makes it different. But whenever I like interview like NPs, I feel like there's almost always like this awkward point where we're both about to talk or something. And like, I don't know, like, and it's not like their fault or my fault. It's just like the flow sometimes doesn't get into it. So I feel like that really makes sense. It's like, I'm like, you're blasting, so I'm going to listen to you blast. And then, okay, now I'm going to blast.
Yeah. Like, it's very mutually like respectful, like in both sides.
Yeah. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I will be linking her channel below, and Snug if you want to check that out as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks so much,
Definitely,
Megan.
of course. Thank you so much for your time, and everyone go subscribe to Lindsay if you want some awesome INTJ, MBTI, or personality content. All right,
Cool,
bye.
thanks. Bye.